Okay, so it's the March group coaching call tonight. I know I say it every time, but I can't believe how quickly the months go because it doesn't feel like a month ago we were sitting here doing the last one. But thanks for those of you who've joined. And if you're watching on recording, hello. Okay, so I'm just going to dive straight in because there's quite a bit to cover tonight, but jump in with any questions, not a problem at all. But one thing I thought I would talk about tonight because it was quite timely is I was away over the weekend, and I know that when we go on holiday and when we're traveling and when we're out of routine, it feels so much harder, doesn't it, to like stay on track and to eat according to the plan and everything else. So I kind of thought I would talk a bit about what I did over the weekend to minimize the damage because it was a real foodie weekend. I can't deny it. Like we absolutely big lunches, big dinners, not no holding back. And it was 4 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, yeah, 4 days. So, I mean, clearly, if I'd done it for 2 weeks, it would have been a different outcome. But because it was for 4 days, I kind of just, enjoyed the whole experience. Um, but I did put a few strategies in place to kind of make sure that I minimized the damage, and it did work. So I thought I would share it because, everyone's hopefully going to be traveling a bit over Easter or in the summer, and so a few tips to think about. One thing I did do is I did watch alcohol because we know all those hidden calories, and I'm going to talk about calories later, but obviously all the hidden sugars and calories and alcohol, and you're drinking it. So it doesn't fill you up. You're not aware sometimes of how much you're actually consuming in terms of calories and sugar. So I was careful with the alcohol, even though I was away. And another thing I did was I made sure that breakfast was really light. So I would have like some fruit and yogurt and like hard-boiled egg, and literally like that was be it. So at least I kind of felt like I'd saved the calories and saved the fats and the carbs for later on in the day. Made sure I drank plenty of water. And did have, I mean, I don't know how healthy the salads were because there was so much stuff in them, but did obviously try and go for salads and no dessert. But really with the food, I did relax with the food, which was really nice to do that for a little while and just have a break. But to counterbalance that, I made sure that I got loads of movement in, and it actually felt really nice because it helped to kind of feel like I was still in control, and I was choosing to enjoy the food and to work out or to get that movement in at the same time. So, for example, um, we went out for a big lunch, and then I did an hour on the treadmill between lunch and dinner, doing walking on a steep incline with a good podcast on. So again, it's just kind of it's helping the digestion, keeping everything moving, and it wasn't necessarily a high cardio, high impact exercise, but by doing it consistently for an hour, I was getting into like the fat burn stage, and I was using up my NEAT energy, the non-exercise. I mean, I was walking, but it wasn't really exercise. It's like non-exercise activity, thermogenesis. So kind of keeping it more in that zone. So that was good. Did a couple of big workouts again, just to keep me on track and to kind of keep the damage under control. And also what was nice was a sauna, because being in the hotel and having the spa and we forget about those kind of little techniques and little strategies for when we're trying to sort of maintain or lose weight, detoxing. So saunas are really good for that. So, if you're not in the mood to work out, you're on holiday and you're feeling a bit like lazy and whatever, just going and spending like 10 minutes in a sauna, 15 minutes in a sauna will be really beneficial. It gets everything pumping, gets the metabolism going, gets some detoxing going. So, it feels like a bit of a cheap thing to say that was on the list, but it does really work. So doing saunas was good. Being outside in the fresh air, I mean, the alpine air was just gorgeous. So one day we did a really big hike and we're going up and down in the snow and the ice. So you're really like using your body the whole time. So when we weren't eating, I was moving. And I think by doing that, I was able to kind of balance it all out a bit. So I got away with it because it was for 4 days. But it really did make a difference. And I think that by doing that, I did manage to kind of control, I suppose, what was going on. So I've come back, I've put on half a pound, which I'm quite happy with. I've had a really good weekend, really enjoyed it. But I know by Wednesday that's going to come off because today and Tuesday I'll be back on sort of normal, like high protein, low starchy carbs, low sugar, watching the like 3 meals and one mini meal, plenty of water, plenty of movement, and that kind of extra little bit of weight will come down. And a lot of that extra weight is probably like salt and water retention, because obviously in restaurants they put so much more of that kind of stuff on the food, and possibly from the flight as well. I think we do put on a bit of weight sometimes when we're flying because of the altitude difference as well. So, it was quite nice to feel like I could have a few days off and not really do too much damage. So that was quite nice. Anyone else got any tips they want to share that they do when they're on holiday, or anything they want to ask or chat about being away from home and trying to stay on plan?
I want to ask about the alcohol actually, because if everyone drinking, and if I have one glass, I just can't stop. So, and then the next day I just crave food and I'm hungry, crave sugar.
Over,
So,
yeah,
I can either have a glass or not, but if I have a glass, then I just can't stop drinking.
right.
So, how did you control it, or how do you normally, find a balance?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm quite lucky because I can stop. I mean, I will have a couple of drinks and then stop. But also there's little tricks you can do. Like, I think I've mentioned before when we've talked about alcohol, but I really, when I'm not drinking, but I want to feel like I'm drinking, I'll have a slimline tonic. And I even embarrass myself saying to the waiter, can you put it in a gin and tonic glass with a straw and a slice of grapefruit or whatever? Like, make it look like a gin and tonic for me. But I'm actually having a slimline tonic, and Fever Tree it's the Fever Tree slimline tonic is really good, and it's not got any artificial sweeteners in. It's fine. And so I find by doing that, you still feel like you're having a drink. You kind of trick yourself. So
Yeah.
I know it sounds silly, but it works. So I did that a few times, and then just trying to sip it slowly and being aware, because especially if you've got waiters like filling up the glass if it's wine, and they just fill it up the whole time at the table. So it's kind of just being aware so that you're able to kind of know what you're drinking, and just maybe just drinking during the meal. Once the meal stops, you stop. All those kind of little signals to yourself, just to make it's just awareness, I think, because I think sometimes when we're in that kind of relaxed social atmosphere, we lose that awareness.
Mm.
Um, and just drinking plenty of water. So sometimes it's just the action of picking up a glass and drinking something while you're sitting at the table with a conversation and everyone's drinking. So, having the water glass there as well, just and trying to alternate it a little bit, just to keep it a little bit under control. Because I mean, we all want to let off some steam and have a drink occasionally, but it's just trying to kind of obviously manage that. And as we get older with our liver and everything else, it is important that we're aware and we're not overdoing it, because the liver just can't cope so well anymore we get older. I mean, I don't know about you, but I definitely find now a couple of drinks, I'm like, that's it, I don't need any more. Whereas, the 20-year-olds seem to be able to drink a lot more and hold it in. But yeah, I think, does that help?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's
I
just that.
find I can't do wine. I just can't do wine anymore. Like, I'm with you on the. I've just come back from a weekend, actually 4 days, and I just had one gin and tonic, and then the next drink was a tonic, and it was no. Everyone else was on the wine, and it was no big deal that I'm sitting. It didn't even look like I'd gone from my one gin and tonic, then it tonic, and then I felt fine the next day as well. Whereas wine, it's
Yeah,
just
and you feel so smug.
yeah. Oh, so smug.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And also, when you're ordering drinks, asking for a single instead of a double, because they often will automatically make them doubles. So if
Mm.
you order like a gin and tonic or vodka and Coke, whatever it is, specify you want a single, because otherwise they'll give you a double. So obviously you could have two drinks instead of one for the same calories.
Mm.
Yeah. So just a few tips. I don't know. I just thought because I'd managed to sort of fit that all in over the weekend, it was worth sharing. I think it's different when you're on like a 2-week holiday in the summer. I think it's obviously harder, but then I think you don't have to cram so much in because you've got that extended period. So you kind of, on a longer holiday, I was just kind of relaxed for one meal, and then instead of, like this time I relaxed for lunch and dinner, but on a longer holiday, I might say, right, lunch I'm still on plan, and dinner I'll relax a bit more because I know that I've got more time there and more big meals.
Yeah.
But I think also the point is that that's the point of being on a lifestyle, not a diet, that you come back and you're straight back to like normal, rather than, oh, I'm back on my diet now because I've come back from holiday. It's like this is like back to normal, and then it does feel more natural every time you do it. I think it's quite easy really once you get into the the zone. So that said, the main topic for tonight, I wanted to talk a bit about calories, because we're always talking about calories and counting calories and and there's such, I think I said when I was talking today on the live, because I'm almost going to be contradicting myself the whole time now, because there's literally two camps. One camp that says, you know, calorie is king and you have to count calories and can't go over your calories if you want to lose weight, or you've got to like maintain calories to maintain weight. And then there's another school of thought that just completely poo-poos that and says that doesn't count. And I think obviously I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm kind of in both, like a foot in both camps, because I think the logic of counting calories and having a way of tracking things and being aware of where your calories are coming from is really important. But as we know, we've got so many other things going on in our bodies as we get into perimenopause and menopause as women with our hormones, that the calories are like secondary, but you still need to be aware of them, which is why I don't like counting calories per se. Like I don't like really sort of tracking and counting all the calories and being really precise with it all, because I just think it's not sustainable, it's boring, and it's not accurate half the time. You know, but at the same time it's helpful to kind of understand what calories are and how they can vary, because it is still part of, if one's looking to lose weight or maintain the current weight, then very few of us want to put weight on, so we do not need to be aware of it. So the first thing is I just wanted to define what the word calorie means, because I think we use the word all the time, but not everyone actually knows what it means. So I've written it down, so I'm going to read it. But it's the energy to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. So I don't know about you, but that's like nothing to do with food at all. So it's like, what is the point? I mean, who made this up? That it's 1 gram of water and it's raised by 1 degree, and that's the amount of energy that took is the calorie. So it's such an obscure, random thing anyway. And then they say that, as normal level of activity for a woman, we should be having between 1,800 and 2,400 calories a day, which again is like a massive variation, really, 1,800 to 2,400. And they're not really qualifying in that how many calories should come from what foods or anything like that, or whether you have all your calories in one go or spread them out over the 24 hours or 12 hours or 8 hours. It's all so random. So that's why I do think it's a bit of a red herring sometimes, focusing too much on calories. But that said, they are useful because obviously there's still the laws of physics that if you energy in has to equal energy out for everything to stay equal in the middle. So if you're eating more calories than you're spending, in theory, you're going to put weight on, or if you're eating less calories than you're spending, you're going to lose weight. And the problem with the human body is obviously it's not a perfect system in the middle, so that perfect equation doesn't always follow through. But I kind of get the logic of that what you're putting in, if it's more than what you're putting out, you're going to gain weight, because that energy has to go somewhere, so it gets stored in the body fat. There's nowhere else for the body to put it. It has to store it somewhere. Everyone with me so far?
Yeah.
So calories are helpful, but I think it's more important to be aware of where any calories from your food is coming from, which is why I do always focus on protein and vegetables and fiber. So, and if you start there, when we're looking at the calories of the macronutrients, so the proteins, the fats, and the carbs, which all food kind of falls under 1, 2, or 3 of those categories. If it's pure carbs or pure protein, it's 4 calories per gram. And if it's fat, it's 9 calories per gram. So we know straight away that fat is more than twice as calorific as protein and fiber, protein and carbs. So it's a quick way to kind of gauge it. And so, of course, if we are trying to sort of be aware of the calories that we're consuming, having a diet that's very high in fat and low in the other nutrients, in theory, you're having a lot more calories you're taking in than you would be if you were eating the same amount of volume of food in protein or carbohydrates. So that's why it's kind of good to be aware of calories, because also when we want to lose weight, if we're eating a mixture of food during the course of the day, if we're not aware of where those fats are coming in, because they're the sneaky things that tend to sneak in, they're actually quite a lot of calories, so they add up. So then you do want to be a bit aware. So it is worth being aware of things like, and I haven't got the data in front of me, but what a teaspoon of olive oil looks like versus a tablespoon of olive oil. And then if you did a glug of olive oil, you know, it's totally different. So if you do want to count any calories, personally, I would count the calories of fats, and I would count the calories of starchy carbs and processed foods. Wouldn't really worry too much about counting the calories of my protein if it's good, healthy, lean protein. And I definitely wouldn't worry about counting the calories of my vegetables or my fruit. So it kind of takes the pressure off tracking and counting too much. Also, when we cook food, that can really alter the amount of calories in the food. So somebody saying, oh, I've had 100 grams or 100 calories of broccoli. If you've boiled the broccoli or you've steamed the broccoli or you've eaten the broccoli raw, that equates to a completely different number of calories actually into your body. So the whole theory of I've had 100 calories of broccoli is just irrelevant, because your body's actually absorbed maybe 80 calories or 95 calories or 100 calories, depending on how you cooked it. So if we, with things like roasting vegetables or roasting meat, the water evaporates. And so for weight, it's less calories because there's water's gone. Does that make sense? Maybe I'll repeat that one. So let me do it a different way. If we've got 100 grams of raw meat and 100 grams of cooked meat, the raw meat's going to have more calories in it than the cooked meat, because the cooked meat, no, it's going the other way around. Yeah, the raw chicken had less calories in than the cooked chicken, because the cooked chicken, the water's absorbed and it's more dense. So if you're comparing 100 grams of raw chicken and 100 grams of cooked chicken, the 100 grams of cooked chicken's got more calories in than the 100 grams of raw chicken, because some of that weight is water weight in the raw chicken. So it just doesn't make sense to be focusing so much on calorie. I would prefer to focus with protein on weight, because we want to be getting 1 gram of protein for a pound of body weight. If you weigh 150 pounds, you should be eating 150 grams of protein. So that would be more helpful than trying to say, I want to eat 300 calories of protein. It would just be a much better way to do it. What are the other notes I had on cooking? So when we have things like raw vegetables versus cooked vegetables, generally the cooked vegetables, because they've already been partly like broken down, almost like pre-digested by cooking, you absorb a lot more of it. So you're actually going to absorb probably all the vegetable or most of the vegetable apart from the fiber. If you're eating raw vegetables, your body's got to break that down and get the calories out. So you're actually not going to absorb so many calories. So it's just, again, that's why that kind of demystifies counting the calories, because it's raw or cooked is so different. But then you can also add calories, because if you're cooking and you're using a little bit of oil, but the oil gets absorbed or the oil stays in the pan, it's affecting the calorie count. So again, it's almost impossible to count it when you're doing that. So that's partly why I think counting calories is just so complicated and not necessarily helpful. And then we've got what we call the thermic effect of food, which is basically the calories that the body has to burn to absorb the nutrients from that food. So the more processed and more simple the food is, so like a piece of white bread, which is like really processed and really simple, if you eat 100 calories of white bread, you're going to absorb all 100 calories of that white bread, because it's so easily broken down in the gut that all that glucose, all the calories can be absorbed really easily. If you're eating 100 calories of steak, for example, that steak is so tough for the digestive system to break down and get the nutrition out of, that you're actually going to only absorb, say, 70 to 80 calories for that 100 calories of steak. because your body's using up calories to break down the steak and absorb it. So again, if you've counted your calories and you've had say you've had 1,000 calories that day of bread versus 1,000 calories of steak, you're going to be out by 300, 400 calories, depending on which one you've had. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just being aware. And so these are all reasons why I always say focus on protein and vegetables, because the way the body breaks them down and absorbs them, you're just not taking in. You're getting all the nutrition, you're getting the iron and the protein and the the phytonutrients from the plant, but you're not getting all the calories because your body's had to work really hard to get that nutrition out of that food. So that's another sort of thing to think about. And then things like if you're eating really cold food, because they like ice cream, that's not a really good example. But if you're eating really cold food like gazpacho soup versus a warm soup, that gazpacho soup has to be warmed up to body temperature inside the body to be absorbed. And so again, that's using some calories. It's not the best example because neither of them are going to be particularly high in calories. But if you're having 100 calories of gazpacho, cold gazpacho, versus 100 calories of hot sweet potato soup, again, you're not going to be absorbing the same calories. So this is why I feel personally that counting calories is just such a tricky thing to do, and it's not necessarily helpful when we're thinking about nutrition, because we don't want to just be thinking about, oh, I've got to eat 1,800 calories, otherwise I'm going to put weight on, because what's really important is what that food is and how your body's using it and what it's using it for. Yeah, any questions? Anyone want to interject with something or share something?
So can you hear me? Can you hear me, Lisa?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So on the basis of what you've just said, for instance, if I made an omelette and I ate half of it for dinner,
Yeah,
and saved the other half for lunch the next day, but ate that cold, there would be a difference in the actual calories I was absorbing.
in theory, yes, but in reality, like, it's a small amount. I'm not saying it's a significant amount, but theory, yes, maybe 5, 6 calories.
Right.
But the thing is that if they also say that a pound of fat is worth like 3,500 calories, right? So you have to, if you want to lose a pound of fat, you have to burn 3,500 calories, right? But some people will overeat by maybe 500 calories a day consistently every day, but they're not going to get to be like 600 pounds in weight, because the body just, I mean, obviously some of those people on their TV programs in America do, but most people don't. Like, there comes a point where you're not absorbing those calories. Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't, there's not really a logic, because it would go the same way that if you went into a calorie deficit every day by 500 calories, eventually you'd weigh nothing, but nobody ends up weighing nothing. There comes a point where the body kind of levels out and it stops using those calories, and you're just excreting them, you're just not using them. So again, it kind of debunks the whole purpose of counting calories, because the body's only going to take that so far, and then nature kind of kicks in, and that's why it's not like a perfect machine that's been created in a factory. There's so many other factors coming in. So I just feel like counting calories isn't necessarily helpful. I think it's good to be aware. So I always say, kind of be aware of calories, in terms of, are you getting, if you want to lose weight, you have to make sure that you're not overeating. So their calories are quite helpful. But in other ways, you kind of just want to be thinking about the quality of the food versus the quantity of the food, and because the body's going to utilize those foods in such a different way. So yeah, so it's more about thinking about getting the nutrients. And if you're getting all that, if you're getting it mainly from the lean, healthy proteins and vegetables, and then you've got some coming from the fats and the the carbs. It's going to balance it out, and the counting isn't so relevant. It's more about getting those ratios right. So, you know, making sure you're getting plenty protein and vegetables, and then fats and carbs, and it's just kind of going to balance out anyway.
Lisa, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
With regards to how we eat and the times of day and things like that, with regards to calories. So, yeah, if you're aiming for a rough figure each day, does it make a huge difference at what time of the day you eat things?
No, not from a calorie weight loss perspective. No, the body isn't more or less efficient at burning calories at a different time of the day.
Okay.
It is helpful to give the body time in rest and digest, but that's more from a therapeutic perspective and a cleansing perspective. If you say for the sake of this example, say we were counting calories and we were eating 1,800 calories every 24 hours period, you could eat 1,800 calories over 23 hours, and then the next day eat 1,800 calories over 6 hours, and the next day 1,800 calories over 20 hours, and it wouldn't make any difference to your weight, but it would make a difference to how the body's functioning and how well the body's functioning, and that rest and digest versus the, like, you know, the fight and flight mode and all that. So yeah, but
Okay.
but the calorie, it doesn't matter where you have them in the day.
Yeah, as long as there's a decent break between finishing it in the evening and starting the next day. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. Trying to see if there's any other notes that I had here. I scribbled down loads of stuff. So, I mean, obviously, some people are also going to have things, you know, if you're counting calories, but then it's not always, you know, the labeling on food can be so inaccurate sometimes. It's amazing how inaccurate it can be. So it will say something has got 9 grams of protein and 4 grams of carbs in. And then when you add up the actual calories, it's nowhere near the amount of calories that the label's saying. Because if you know that 9 grams of protein is 945 calories, and 2 grams of fat would be 18 calories, you can add that up and you know that's 63. But then you'll look at the bottle or the packaging and it will say, you know, 59 calories or 72 calories. It's just, for some reason, the labelings are really not that accurate when you think they're going to be. So that can also throw you, because you're counting the calories on the bottom of the label without looking at what you're eating, and it's all inaccurate. And it's the same with restaurants, you know, even though they put the calorie count sometimes now on menus, it's not always, there's no way that every single meal that they're putting out has got the same amount of, particularly things like the fats, where there is such a, you know, because they are so many calories in a gram of fat, it's so easy for them to put a little bit more olive oil on one dish over the other, or, you know, whatever, or cook it in more oil, and suddenly it's completely different. So it's just not necessarily a scientific way of counting and sort of monitoring your food intake. There's better ways to do it, I think, which is focusing on protein and fiber. Yeah. And then we've got things like, you know, different people's metabolisms are going to be different. So who's to say that the 100 calories is going to be treated the same by everybody's body, and it's going to be impacted, you know, your metabolism is going to vary, whether you're stressed, whether you're relaxed, whether you're, you know, on your period or not, whether it's morning or like, it's just like, I get, you know, it's just going to vary. So, and then obviously it varies person to person. So it's such an inaccurate way to track your food, really. But you can see there's so many different layers to it. But it's not, I don't even think that I'm explaining it particularly well, because it is so confusing. But I think really that's why, as a rule, I don't count calories, because I just think it's a useful tool by, like, the food manufacturers and by the people that want to advise how to eat, because they don't know how else to do it, and it's an easy way to do it, and it's something that they think everybody understands. But actually it's it's still really vague and it's not really scientific enough, and it's not taking into consideration so many different factors that it's just, it kind of makes a bit of a mockery out of it, really, when you think about it deeper and deeper. So I think it's more important to think about the quality of what you're eating versus the quantity. And I think if you're eating the correct weight of protein a day, and you're getting plenty of fiber a day, so 35 grams of fiber, and if you're a 150-pound woman, and 150 grams of protein, if you were doing that every day, you're going to be fine. You're not going to, the whole calories in, calories out thing is not going to be relevant to you, because what you're eating is fueling the body exactly how it's meant to be fueled, and it doesn't need anything else. Any questions? I think I need to write this down for everybody. But I think, I think at least I've shown that it is such a confusing thing with the calories, that don't get too bogged down with it, and don't think about, I think it's like, don't take it down to such a simplistic thing of counting calories. It's not the be all and end all. It's just be aware of the overall volume of food you're eating, but eating the protein and the fiber, and obviously there's always going to be a little bit of fats in there, because if you're having salmon or eggs, or you're putting some olive oil on your vegetables, or you're having a piece of cheese or some yogurt, there's going to be the fats there. So they're coming in automatically, but they're coming in packaged with the other foods, so their impact is less, and the amount that you're getting in relation to the other nutrients is right. So that's when you don't have to worry really about the calories. Any questions?
It does make sense what you're saying, Lisa. I know you think that it sounds like it doesn't, but it does.
It all made sense in my head this morning when I put all my notes out on my paper. Like, I put like a load of notes down, and now I'm trying to like get it out, and it's kind of, but I know I'm contradicting myself the whole way through this conversation, but I think that's the point, in a way. That's what the point I'm trying to make, that it is such a nuanced thing. Sorry, Heidi, go on.
No, I was just going to say that it is very, very confusing, the whole counting calories thing. I've never done it myself. A friend of mine does it like religiously, and I just think, just eat a whole load of protein and some vegetables and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to work out what have you eaten in the day and measuring it all. And I just say to her, just eat protein and veg. Don't worry about counting the calories. But that's just me, because I couldn't bear to do that and sit after every meal, have to plan what I've eaten and then sit down and work it all out. And then it takes the enjoyment away from what you're eating.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, what I think is a useful exercise, and I have done it a couple of times, if I have worked out the calories of some particular meals that I eat regularly, just not actually to see the calories, I shouldn't have said it like that, to see the macros. So to see the proportion of protein, fats and carbs in that meal, and to understand how that all breaks down. So that's useful. So then you can see. So I would prefer to track, if I was going to track my food in any way, that's how I would track it. I would track it by protein, fiber and fats. And then and if you're hitting those targets for the protein and the fiber, you're exactly, that's exactly right, Heidi. You're not going to go far wrong. But I think that can be quite useful, because sometimes we don't necessarily, we look at a plate and we think, oh, that's well balanced, but actually when you do break it down more specifically with the macros, you can see it's not as well balanced as you thought it was. So that can be quite useful, but not so much for like the counting calories. It's just more about getting the ratios in the right way, so that the plate is balanced with the protein and the fiber and the fats, as opposed to what the overall calorie count of that plate of food is.
So when you say that about being balanced, you're talking about having more protein and vegetables, non-starchy vegetables.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it depends what the meal or the plate of food is, obviously. But I mean, if you're having, say, yogurt and fruit, it's going to be mainly fats and proteins and well, carbs from the fruit, but it's like different to how a plate with chicken and roasted vegetables and a bit of rice would look. But yeah, so but it's just being aware of how that's breaking down, because you definitely do want to be aware that most of your calories, most of your food intake is coming from protein and fiber. But it doesn't, that the actual calorie count of that, I don't think is important. I think it's just important that most of your food is coming from that. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Oh, I just want to say that's why I think your program works for me, because I know a lot about counting calories, but it's like concentrating on the right food, like you said, because obviously fiber, it has a lot less calories and it fills you up. Protein fills you up. So if you listen to your body, then if you eat, the food fills you up. You don't have to count calories.
No.
Yeah. So, and all your recipes are, concentrating every program you did, gut health is eating less gluten, less, simple carbs. So, yeah. So it's just, that's why I love your program, because, it just helped me to learn to eat the right food, because I couldn't find it in any books, so yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back and replay those sentences you said at the beginning of that, because I was like, my gosh, she summed it up so well that it's taken me half an hour to say, and you summed it up in like a sentence. But yeah, exactly. Oh no, that makes me happy. Thank you, girls. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. No one's got any questions?
I've just got one question,
Yeah,
because this is classic, and you'll know as soon as I start talking about it that this is me.
Right.
So I follow your recipes, as you know, but I just seem to plateau. So I know you've told me a million times, drink more water, do more exercise, and I'm sure if I do those, properly, I probably will lose weight. But I don't do them properly, as you know, so I'm not going to lie about it.
Yeah.
So is that what is stopping me from losing the weight? Because my eating, you've seen my plates, the sort of foods that I eat. I hardly eat any processed foods, rarely any processed foods. What else can I do?
Yeah, no, I know, and it's frustrating when weight plateaus and you don't want it to. I think it's taking a step back and thinking gut health, hormones, sleep, stress, movement. Did I say hormones? The liver, gallbladder, all these things, they all play a part. Thyroid. It's all part of the bigger picture, which is also why the calories thing doesn't make sense for women, because if you're not, you need to make sure that your liver and your gallbladder and digestion's working, because that's how you excrete, you remove things. If you can't remove them, they end up sitting in our adipose tissue, in our fat, and then the body thinks that fat is like toxic because it's holding on to the chemicals and the food that we were meant to be eliminating, and we haven't eliminated it, and so it holds on to the fat because it's nervous if it lets the fat go, like breaks it down, that it's releasing toxins into the body. And if the liver and gallbladder and digestive system aren't working well enough to eliminate those, it's going to poison itself, the body. So it's kind of like the body needs to feel like everything's in perfect balance, and then it will release the excess fat that it's holding on to. So it's detox, it's elimination, it's liver, it's gallbladder, it's gut, it's sleep, it's stress, it's removing toxic exposure where you can. If you're somebody that's, I can't remember what you do for a job, Heidi, I'm sorry, but if you're somebody who works in like a chemical factory, you're surrounded by toxins all the time, and that's inside your body. So it's being held in the fat tissues in the body. So the body's got to feel like if it breaks down that fat and releases those toxins that they're going to get removed, like they're going to be pooed out or weed out or sweated out. Otherwise, it's not going to let it go. And it's sleep. You know, sleep is when the body regenerates and repairs. It's stress, because when the body is in fight and flight mode, it can't be in rest and digest mode at the same time. It's impossible. So if it's not in rest and digest, where it's breaking things down and using them and regenerating and doing its housekeeping, it's in fight and flight mode where everything's like, and it can't lose weight because nothing's moving, nothing developing. If anything, it's getting more bloated, more blocked up, more clogged up, more built up.
I definitely need more sleep. I am aware of that. I think I go to bed quite late.
Okay.
So,
I mean, sleep is important. I mean, I literally, my husband's jealous of how I sleep. He told me that the other day, because I literally, like, for me, sleep is so important. You know, I'm quite happy to be in bed by 9:30, asleep by 10, and I'll, you know, I don't wake up late. I wake up at like 6:30, but that's why you know, sleep is a massive priority. It's so important. But so is gut health. You know, you want to make sure that you're pooing every day, that your kidneys are working, you're weeing, that you're balancing your salt and your potassium and your all these different things. So all these reasons why calorie counting doesn't work. So yeah, there's so many factors to think about. You know, and estrogen and progesterone and testosterone as we're getting older. You know, if we've got low testosterone, it's almost impossible for us to build muscle, and your body's either, you know, you've either got like fat mass or muscle mass, and there's obviously like bone and, you know, other tissue, but the majority of our body is fat or muscle. And if you can't make muscle because you haven't got like testosterone and you're not using your muscles to build muscle mass, you're going to have more fat. So it's so many different things.
yeah. Okay. Well, I'll start with more sleep, and I'll definitely up the water.
Yeah, and movement. It is movement, you know, it's like, you know, it's like doing an hour on a treadmill, walking, or outside in the road walking. I mean, if I do it with my dog, it's no good because he stops at every bush. So I don't get a proper walk in. But, you know, walking for an hour progressively on an incline on a treadmill, or, you know, you just moving is just so important. And we just don't do enough of it. So, you know, if you know, and I know with you, Heidi, your diet is really good. If your diet is good, then it's those other factors you need to be thinking about, and you just need to prioritize them. I know you try to. I know we all try to. It's not a criticism or you know, or anything. It's just the way it is, and it's just we're so busy and there's so many other things going on, you know. But that's why I do the group coaching calls and have the Facebook group, because if you just have everything on the portal, you're never going to look at it because you're just too busy and life carries on and we're doing so many different things. But by making sure that there are touch points where you're seeing the Facebook group, or you're coming to this, or, you know, coming to another thing that we do, then it's that reminder to prioritize yourself again. And we need that reminder all the time because there's so many things going on. Yeah.
Funny you say that, because I'm just feel very similar to what everything Heidi's just said, but what you're saying has reminded me that my sleep priority has slipped. My allowing work stress to sneak in has slipped, and I just feel that quite reassured by hearing that, because I was feeling like, oh, everything I'm doing, I'm not really getting anywhere. So it's just that reminder, isn't it?
And it is, and I guess it makes it a bit overwhelming when we keep saying you've got to sleep and you've got to this and you've got to that, and you've got to, if we don't remind ourselves to do it and we don't prioritize it, then it just doesn't happen. And I know because it seems to be a lot easier for the guys, because they go to work, they come home, their dinner's on the table, they go to bed, they wake up, there's a clean shirt in the cupboard, you know, that's my husband anyway. But you know, they don't have all these different things going on, and they'll say, oh, I'm off to the gym now, or whatever it is they want to do. But somehow for women, for us, there's like so many different things going on, and on top of that, we've got our hormones, you know, as well, which does make everything so much harder. You know, when I'm working with male clients versus female clients, it's so different because they just don't have that whole like battle going on inside their body with their hormones, which just really does mess everything up.
My husband just cuts down on beer like for a couple of weeks, and he's like, "Oh, I've lost weight." I'm like, "Really? Have you?
You're like,
That's all you've done, right? Okay, fine."
yeah, exactly.
It is true though how the weight just drops off the men, and we're
Yeah.
battling, eating perfectly healthy meals
Yep.
and yet not losing a thing, and they just cut out some alcohol and they're done.
Yeah. But that's why that's testosterone as well. They've got the testosterone, it helps them, and we just don't have as much of it, and what little we do have we lose as we get older, so it's just harder. That's definitely one of the factors, I think. Yeah, so it's but we are meant to have more body fat than them. You can't compare yourself really to the men either, because a healthy body fat for a man is about between like 8 and 11%, whereas a woman is 22 to 26%. Massive.
Oh wow. God, yeah.
That's like double, isn't it?
Yeah,
more
more
than
than
that.
double. More than
that.
we're meant to have
Three
more than
times as much
body fat percent of men. It's a massive difference.
Mm.
We are physically designed to be more squidgy. And it's fine. But we need that, because when we lose too much body fat, we lose our periods. And that's a sign that the body is malnourished and not in a safe place to, reproduce. So it's the body's all we are what we think of as like the ideal physique now for women, especially with bloody Ozempic. But the way we think of the ideal physique for women is actually not genetically what our body wants us to look like. So you are fighting nature as well.
That's social media, isn't it, that's created this new image of what women should look like.
Yeah.
And
don't
quite frightening,
the Botox and the lips and the filler and it's crazy. And we're just I do hope that within this community there is I do keep it real as well, because I don't want people to feel like they're meant to be 8 stone and loads of muscles and stuff. That's not it at all. It's about being healthy and optimal and feeling energized, and these bodies have got to take us through the rest of our lives, and they've got to be working in good working order all the way through. So that's more, we want to look after our bone health and our our gut and our brain, our cognitive function, and our heart health. So important, more important than what the scales say. No, there we go.
Definitely.
Oh, all right, girls. Well, I hope that was helpful. I will put the recording up. I think I'll put it on the portal, because I think it's going to be too long to put on Facebook, but I'll put it up somewhere with a link. But I hope that was helpful. Thank you for joining me. And
it was. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Any questions, let me know. All right.
See you.
All right, good.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Lisa.
Good night.
Bye.